Well, that's a harsh title, but given the subject matter I'm covering here, successfully avoiding ticking off at least some people is basically impossible. So I might as well set the stage for convincing those who will agree with what will follow in this video to become similarly riled and motivated, because I do think the stakes are high enough for that. This is the second time I've written a script to address a topic that I've been mulling over doing a video on for a couple of months now. Now, if you clicked on this video, I expect that you have a basic understanding of what I'm discussing here. But in case that you don't, in the last few years, there have been plenty of progress in AI technologies, from AI that can produce images from text descriptions, play complex social games like diplomacy, or get tricked into providing detailed instructions for how to hotwire a car. Put quickly, the way this works is that developers create a program that looks at so-called training data and learns to associate them to each other and produce content that is recognizable by humans and presumably other AIs in response to given prompt, be it an image or a word. Now, what that training data is the source of the controversy I'm going to partially address here. But I'll get to it in a roundabout way by speaking about all of this by starting with a question. What is art? I would say an incontroversial definition of art is the use of creative skill to communicate something, be it a feeling, viewpoint, or concept. Now, obviously, what AI generators working from prompts are producing is something that one can associate with feelings, viewpoints, or concepts. So the more difficult question is if in this process creative skill is involved. I think the answer is yes. It does take skill to coax an image generator or a large language model to produce something that you're satisfied with its ability to communicate something. And that process alone is enough for me to consider it creative skill. Now, this is a point where plenty of people will fume because obviously it takes more time and effort and precision to draw something than it does to write a prompt. But that doesn't make the former less creative than the latter. Or at least doesn't for some people. For example, you certainly have plenty who insist that that image on the right here has greater artistic value than what is on the left. A take you should really have if you're of the opinion that AI-assisted content isn't art, or vice versa. Now, those of you who can recognize who drew what is on the right will see that I'm engaging in perhaps one of the oldest tricks in internet argumentation, but it is relevant. The anti-AI assisted content position is elitist and contrary to how humanity produces, well, anything. Which leads to the next question, whether or not AI art is theft. There are two aspects of this which I can pretty quickly address, both the question of originality, as in AI art using inspiration for creation, and whether or not that's somehow theft, with the next part being the fact that it implies that more or less the entire internet works on quote-unquote theft. A common contention is that it's theft because AIs are taking elements of training data and copying it in different forms. I regret to inform those people that every single thing that any human being has ever produced or communicated involved copying and rearranging pre-existing forms. Nobody has ever created something entirely unique, because ultimately all understanding works by associating things one has observed before with elements of new things they're currently observing. It is interesting to me that this basic reality, that all new works are built on old, seems more internalized by those who are in the sciences than those who are in the arts. Even when in science, you can meaningfully find new things that nobody else has observed before. To the point that scientists are constantly fighting against strictly controlled journals that gate information in the name of profit, while many visual artists, who at least at one point prided themselves on taking from the old and making it new, have become ridiculously possessive about their inherently derivative works. Now, one can make the case that perhaps if an AI-generated work reaches a certain threshold of similarity to another work, it should make some citations, which is fine enough for, say, text, when you reach a threshold of replication that if done by a human being would count as plagiarism. But that line is extremely blurry in visual art. Admittedly, if you attempt to apply it there, the AI, being a program, can numerically account for the exact percentages in these things in a way that a human being can't, but that opens up a Pandora's box, which is actually a great segue into the really terrible and self-destructive implications of what the opposition to AI-assisted art is advocating for. There is no scenario where one can build a regulatory framework against AI-assisted art that does not make intellectual property protections on the internet catastrophically more draconian in a way that mangles the commons of the internet. Suddenly, everything from music covers to image macros, memes, to fan art and fan fiction becomes theft if you don't directly contact their owners for permission and or pay them royalties. It really should go without saying that I highly doubt that the majority of those who talk about blacklisting people who use AI image generators from selling them commissions ask for permission or sends payments to intellectual property owners when they make art for someone featuring copywritten characters. It doesn't even have to feature those characters, as apparently the very act of producing something that looks similar to training data is theft. So I don't see why they wouldn't apply that to human artists doing the same with something they saw, because law expects that type of consistency. And you can bet the most litigious of corporations, cough, Disney and Nintendo, cough, when it comes to portrayal of their property, will happily jump on board to ensure so. In fact, some have already tried to sick these corporations on AI-assisted art generation. In fact, I would assume that's probably already happening. See, there's an organization known as the Concept Art Association that has put up a GoFundMe to lobby for changes to law to deal with the quote-unquote unethical practices happening in the AI text-to-image space. I can tell you right now, assuming that it isn't already a front, efforts and groups like these will be used by the largest corporations in the world to put a good PR spin on their same old, tired, and terrible fight to crush creative freedom on the internet in the name of their profit. Which leads us to a further irony. These AI tools that can generate art from training data can just as easily be used to recognize copyrighted material or something that looks similar to it. The opposition to AI image generation are endeavoring to walk us into a future where an all-seeing eye can stifle creativity or at best extract royalties from anything with sufficient similarities to a property that a corporation happens to own. Heck, there'll probably be businesses that make money purely off of copyright trolling, buying copyrights that are sufficiently generic enough that they can pose a credible threat to artists who make anything that looks in some way similar to it. Many of the same people moaning about AI-assisted art generation right now are in the ranks of those who will complain about how copyright enforcement works today, and yet they are currently advocating for something that'll make things far worse. Visual artists should realize that the value of their work comes not from some ability to enforce property, it comes from its association with them specifically. A fake Van Gogh painting just doesn't fetch the same value as a real one. Only corporations, machines, and I don't say this derisively but descriptively, without a personality, need copyright enforcement to retain the value of what they produce. A frequent criticism of AI-assisted art creation is that its products lack personality, that it's empty of soul, that it takes without respect, that it represents a vacuous commercialization. So what does it say about those who believe it can so easily replace them? Especially if they're stumbling into supporting the destruction of a medium that's produced the best environment for artists that's ever existed in a chaotic defense of intellectual property. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment.